again presented by Coinbase. We've already got about 5,000 plus of you on YouTube, 3,000 on Twitch. We know that's going to build throughout the day because guess what? We have liftoff. It's Magnus versus Wesley. Okay. Well, I'm excited. This is going to be great. Here we have D3. Talk a little bit about why this is kind of the popular flex.
Short castle. And short castle allows the open Re Lopez where black takes on E4. It also allows a bunch of very topical lines within the main line. D3, a little bit less theoretical, a little bit more flexible. And Carlsen takes the ambitious approach, getting his bishop out to G5. This often leads Danny to very sharp positions, especially if black plays H6 and then G5 to eliminate that pin.
Agreed, and I want to just make an observation early that you note the pace and the deliberate nature with which these guys are using their time, Danya. I think you know what that means. I think these guys are already thinking about preparation that they brought here, and they're taking this very seriously. They are not blitzing through this with some shenanigans, sideline B3 style openings, right? They are really trying to get theory here to maybe try to take the other person by surprise.
I'm going to hazard a guess that we're going to see more variability in the opening from Carlsen than we will from Wesley. I think Wesley will probably rely on 1E4 and then Italians. But Magnus, I think, from both sides, is going to vary his openings and try to find the kinds of positions that make Wesley uncomfortable. We know how good Magnus is at that, how universal he is, more so than all of the other top players, and they're already incredibly universal. As we see an interesting transformation here, Danny. Carlsen pushes D4. Now he tries to ruin black's queenside pawn structure, but in return you do give up the bishop pair, potentially, if black takes with the pawn. Okay, he took with the bishop.
Interesting. Takes with the bishop, which means we get more trades. The structure slightly favors white. Putting book stage, you see that evaluation bar on the left, everybody changed from a percentage to a pure evaluation. White is a teeny bit favored because of the structure. But John, give us some highlights. What are the plans here from both sides?
Well, I like black's structure. As ugly as that pawn structure looks, I would compare it to a bumper on a car. It's functional. You've got the open B file, so you could stick a rook on B8 at some point and tickle. The pawn is a strength. Yes, it controls space in the center, but it's also a target. And black can put a rook on E8, maybe a queen on E7, and at the right moment, black can push the button and play G7, G5, unpinning the knight. And so Magnus has to make sure that he keeps that E4 pawn protected. We're likely going to see him castle.
and that rook is stuck defending that weakness. Though I think we should watch out for some ideas of this bishop getting out of the comfort zone or lost in the woods. It's not clear yet, but all right. G3 is played. Magnus just playing flexibly on both sides of the board, also preparing maybe an entryway for the king.
Yeah, what's infuriating for Wesley, he's got weaknesses on both sides of the board. A5, of course, but also H6, so the rook could trampoline from one side of the board to the other via the 4th rank, you know, on demand. You could go rook H4, rook A4, so black is essentially at white's command. And speaking of rook H4, I think he's trying to garner the F4 square for his knight, but he's saving that check for a rainy day.
Yeah, I like that. Patience. Not just for a rainy day, but also for time pressure. You never want to play forcing moves when your opponent is clicking down on the clock, because then they have a forcing response. Playing poke and prod chess, I think, is one of the last skills people really develop in chess, Danya. Being very patient, because look what happens. People make mistakes when you leave them to their own devices rather than forcing moves, and I love this patient approach from Magnus.
And they make mistakes because they're sick and tired of defending passively, but the moment you try to make an active move, now knight d3 is a huge threat because you won't be able to defend c5. I think Wesley's only chance is to push a4, essentially close your eyes, and try to create queenside counterplay at all costs. But with 30 seconds on his clock, I'm really worrying about Wesley's practical chances here. He might be losing this first one, but there's a4.
He plays a4. Magnus gonna 4?
I would play c4 and rook a2, and Wesley finds the only series of moves that guarantee practical drawing chances. 14 seconds, though, and he's got a long defensive road ahead of him.
What a nice idea. Create a weakness, go after the c2 pawn. Unfortunately, still tough. Knight b4 is a fork on the a4 rook and the c6 square. Magnus pops in with check.
Can't go back, you get mated, have to go forward and give up d4 with check. No, rook takes d4, it's over. Just 2 extra pawns.
That was a sneaky problem there, that the knight was forking a rook and a square that led to threatening checkmate. And this is a very Magnus-esque game. Look at that game mark bar below, Danya. I call that the Magnus measurement tool stick. I just made that up. Because look
Magnus
at the game, Danya. It's
stick.
even. No, but Danya, seriously, look at it. It's even, and then what happens for Magnus's side?
It's almost magical the way that he's able to create these chances out of nothing. I mean, he traded on f6 as he wins the first game by taking f7. That'll be 3